The chronicle of this absurdity begins, as so many tragedies in the Imperium do, with a flicker of hope. On the war-blasted ruin of Agri-World 9, amidst the mud and blood that had soaked the soil for a generations-long campaign against the Orcs, a tear in reality occurred. It was not the familiar, nauseating green of a chaos rift, nor the sterile silence of a Necron passage. This was a shimmering polychromatic wound in the sky, from which descended a vessel of impossible composition. A cloud. Lord Inquisitor Festus Drake, a man whose soul had been calcified by a century of witnessing humanity's darkest failings, observed the phenomenon from the command bunker of the Cadian 88th. His augmetic eye whirred, attempting to reconcile the data streaming into his cortex. Vessel composition unknown appears to be solidified vapor. Life signs detected, multitudinous yet exuding no discernible malice. Psychic signature, saccharine, obscenely saccharine. From the cloudcraft disembarked the entities, bipedal, ursine in form, covered in brightly colored fur that defied the grim palette of the 41st millennium. Each bore a picked symbol upon its abdomen, glowing with soft, internal light. They did not march, they bounced. Drake's hardened Kassakin guard raised their hell guns, the red dots of their targeting lasers dancing across pastel fur. "Hold your fire," Drake commanded, his voice a low growl of disbelief. "I want to see what fresh madness the galaxy has birthed today." The lead creature, a bear of gentle brown hue with a heart symbol on its belly, raised a paw. "Hi there," it chirped, its voice an affront to the grim silence of the battlefield. "I'm Tenderheart Bear. We felt a whole lot of sadness here, so we came from our home, Carelot, to help." Drake's mind, a fortress of suspicion and paranoia, struggled to process the statement. Carelot, a Xenos designation, sadness, a quantifiable resource to be harvested. Another bear, a vibrant yellow one with a smiling sun on its stomach, slid down a rainbow that spontaneously manifested from the cloud. "Let's turn those frowns upside down," it giggled. This was Funshine Bear. This display of overt psychic power was all Drake needed. "Contain them," he ordered. Ion shields flared to life, forming a crackling cage around the confused bears. They made no attempt to resist, only looking at the soldiers with wide, concerned eyes. Back on his ship, the righteous scrutiny, Drake interrogated his captives. Torture was useless. Pain seemed to genuinely bewilder them. Threats were met with offers of friendship. Psychological warfare was impossible, as they appeared to possess the psychological complexity of a human infant. Yet their power was undeniable. When a servitor malfunctioned and began screaming, a blue bear with a teardrop symbol, Grumpy Bear, let out a sigh. "Oh, for crying out loud, enough with the racket." A beam of blue light, accompanied by a small cloud that rained hearts, shot from his belly. The servitor did not die. It did not explode. It simply stopped screaming, its voxcaster emitting a low, contented hum. Drake witnessed this, and a terrible radical idea began to form in his mind. The greatest threat to the Imperium was chaos, a force fed by the raw, untamed emotions of mortals: rage, despair, ambition, excess. But what if there was an opposite, an emotional force so pure, so cloyingly positive, that it acted as an anathema to the dark powers? "Their weapon," he recorded in his private log, "appears to be a focused psychic projection of empathy. It is the most disgusting and powerful thing I have ever witnessed. If the ruinous powers feed on humanity's passions, perhaps they can be forced to choke on its virtues." And so, Lord Inquisitor Drake, in a move of inspired madness, prepared the most unusual weapon in the Imperium's history. He would not send a fleet. He would not unleash cyclonic torpedoes. He would open a gate to the Eye of Terror and push 10 brightly colored carebears through it. His astropath screamed at the mere thought, but Drake was adamant. He christened them Task Force Rainbow, and their mission was simple: go to the source of the galaxy's sadness and make it better. The carebears tumbled through the warp, not in a Geller field-protected vessel, but on a slide made of pure solidified joy, landing in a soft pile in a place of grotesque fecundity. This was the garden of Nurgle, grandfather of pestilence. Rotting trees wept pus, rivers of filth flowed sluggishly, and cheerful nurglings played catch with severed heads. "Oh my!" exclaimed Carebear, a pink ursine with a rainbow emblem. "This place is a little messy and it smells yucky." A great unclean one, a mountain of corpulent, diseased flesh, noticed their arrival. It lumbered over, its immense plague sword dripping with every disease in the cosmos. "Ooh, new little morsels for the grandfather's pot," it gurgled happily. "You seem a little under the weather," said Tenderheart Bear with genuine concern. "Maybe what you need is a good old-fashioned carebear stare." The 10 bears lined up. Their abdominal symbols began to glow. A wave of concentrated, weaponized positive feeling, a rainbow-hued tsunami of kindness and affection, erupted from them. It struck the greater demon square in its putrid chest. The creature did not dissolve. It did not scream in agony, it simply stopped. A confused look crossed its bloated face. It looked at its filth-caked hands, then at the vibrant, healthy-looking carebears. "Clean," it mumbled, a word it hadn't used in 10,000 years. I feel an overwhelming urge to tidy up." The great unclean one dropped its sword with a squelch and began to frantically scrub at a patch of diseased soil with its bare hands. The nurgling, struck by the beam's afterglow, stopped playing and began arranging skulls in neat, symmetrical patterns. Nurgle himself, from his manse, felt this. A small corner of his garden was suddenly, inexplicably becoming healthy. Flowers bloomed without any interesting new diseases. The air cleared of its delightful stench. He chuckled, a sound like continents grinding together. It was a new and fascinating plague, this cleanliness. He would have to study it further, but for now his most powerful servant was lost to an obsessive-compulsive need for hygiene. Leaving the now spotless corner of Nurgle's realm, the bears found themselves on a plain of cracked earth under a brass sky. Mountains of skulls littered the landscape, and a river of blood flowed past a throne upon which sat Khorne, the blood god, bellowing in rage at the eternal battle before him. "This place is very noisy," complained Grumpy Bear, crossing his arms, "and all this shouting is giving me a headache." A tide of blood letters, demons of pure distilled rage, charged them. Their leader, a herald of Khorne, raised its hellblade. "Skulls for the skull throne," it roared. "It sounds like you're having a really bad day," said Lovelot Bear. "Maybe what you need isn't a skull, but a hug." The carebear stare was unleashed once more. The wave of affection washed over the charging demonic legion. The effect was catastrophic. The herald of Khorne skidded to a halt, its incandescent fury replaced by profound confusion. It looked at the screaming warrior next to it. "You know, we never talk anymore, Kargoth," it said, its voice suddenly lacking its murderous edge. Kargoth, also caught in the blast, stopped. "I know, right? It's always blood for the blood god and never how was your day." The entire legion of demons ground to a halt, their charge dissolving into a massive bickering argument about their feelings and unresolved workplace conflicts. On his throne, Khorne roared in frustration. His chosen warriors were supposed to be killing each other, not engaging in group therapy. He hated therapy. It was the antithesis of mindless violence. He threw a skull at his feet in disgust, which only made Grumpy Bear shout, "Hey, watch it, pal!" This insolence from the small, blue creature enraged Khorne further, but his rage was impotent. His followers were too busy discussing their emotional vulnerabilities to spill any blood. Their work of emotional devastation complete, the carebears were whisked away to a crystalline labyrinth that constantly shifted and changed. This was the domain of Tzeentch, the architect of fate, the master of plots and schemes. "Ooh, a puzzle," squealed Funshine Bear. A lord of change, a demon of immense intellect and cunning, materialized before them. Its voice was 1,000 whispers of lies and half-truths. "Welcome, little ones. I see you seek knowledge. Ask, and I shall grant you the secrets of the cosmos. All I require is a small price." Tenderheart Bear tilted his head. "We don't want secrets. We just want to know if you're happy. You look kind of stressed out." The Lord of Change was taken aback. This was not the avarice and ambition it was used to. It tried another tactic, showing them visions of a future where they ruled the galaxy as gods of affection. "But that would be bossing everyone around," said Tenderheart. "That's not very caring. We'd rather just be friends." The carebears didn't try to solve the maze. They didn't engage with the riddles. When a wall shifted to block them, they simply drew a door on it with a crayon one of them produced, and it opened. When faced with a paradoxical sphinx, they offered it a cupcake. Tzeentch, the master of infinite complexity, watched from the hidden library, and for the first time since the dawn of creation, he was utterly stumped. These creatures were unpredictable because they were simple. Their motivations were straightforward. They had no ambition to manipulate, no greed to exploit, no fear to twist. They were a logical black hole in his perfectly calculated multiverse. He shrieked in frustration, the sound turning 1,000 of his scrolls into screaming bats. He couldn't outwit them. He couldn't even begin to understand them. They were immune to his power by virtue of their sheer, unwavering, idiotic sincerity. Finally, they arrived in the most perilous domain of all, the Palace of Slaanesh, the Prince of Pleasure. Here, every sensation was amplified to an ecstatic extreme. Demonettes danced on air, their movements promising raptures beyond mortal comprehension. The air itself thrummed with sensuous music and intoxicating perfumes. "Wow, this place has great music for a party," said Carebear, clapping her paws. A keeper of secrets, a lithe and terrifyingly beautiful greater demon of Slaanesh approached them. "Such vibrant little creatures," it purred, its voice a symphony of seduction. "Come, let me show you true sensation, the perfect joy of utter excess." "We love joy," said Funshine Bear. "We have lots of it. The keeper of secrets offered them wines that could make a star sing, foods that could make a man weep with bliss, and showed them sights that would shatter a mortal soul with their beauty. The carebear's reaction was polite, but underwhelming. "This is very nice," said Tenderheart Bear after tasting an ambrosial nectar, "but have you ever had a really good cookie, fresh from the oven, and shared it with all your best friends?" The demon was speechless. "Or," added Carebear, "have you ever helped someone feel better when they're sad? That's the best feeling in the whole world." The assembled hosts of Slaanesh were baffled. They offered these creatures infinite sensory overload, and the creatures countered with the simple joys of friendship and altruism. It was an aesthetic they simply could not comprehend. This wasn't excess. This wasn't sensation. This was nice. And nice was boring. Slaanesh, from the throne of pleasure, felt a wave of something utterly alien, second-hand embarrassment. This display of wholesome G-rated fun was ruining the entire mood of the palace. For the first time in eons, a ceasefire was declared in the great game. The four chaos gods, united in a singular purpose, pooled their power, not to destroy the carebears. Their strange, positive energy made them oddly resilient, but to get them the hell out of their reality. With a final cosmic shove, Task Force Rainbow was ejected from the Eye of Terror, tumbling back through the warp and landing in a heap at the feet of the waiting Inquisitor Drake. A strange calm had fallen over the sector. Warp storm activity had decreased by 73%. Demonic incursions had ceased entirely. Drake looked upon the clueless, bouncing bears and saw the ultimate proof of his theory. He had beaten chaos at its own game. "The Anathema Ursine project is a success," he declared to his astounded acolytes. "Prepare them for redeployment. I hear the Orc menace on Armageddon is feeling particularly angry." The carebears, oblivious to the cosmic trauma they had inflicted, were just happy to see a familiar face. "We did it," cheered Carebear. "We went to the big scary cloud and we made so many new friends. They were a little grumpy at first, but I think they're starting to come around." Drake allowed himself a sliver of a smile, the first in decades. The Imperium had a new weapon in its eternal war, a weapon of pastel fur, abdominal pictograms, and the incomprehensible, universe-breaking power of caring. And he, Lord Inquisitor Festus Drake, would be the one to wield it. The galaxy would learn to fear the rainbow.